So it's the federal government saying we want to crack down on Airbnbs with no real like understanding of all the different types of situations that Airbnb renters and Airbnb hosts would have in every single province and every single city. There's just no way that they could possibly understand it.
Oh my God. I don't even think they're really thinking this through. But I mean, they're late because it did kind of screw up the market on the way up, right? And it's gonna equally screw up the market on the way down. Did you see how many units they're going after? Like there's
When they say that's
235,000
what they
Airbnb
think that they have
units.
a 230,000 short-term rental units, right? But you know,
Add
that
that
could
to
be
the
like a
mix.
unit in somebody's house, all that kind of stuff.
Is
Maybe
that what
nobody's going to, yeah, think about it. If Airbnb rules, right? And again, this is about enforcing the rules. And so the rules are, you know, depending on which municipalities in. Maybe you got to rent out a part of your house. Maybe it's a certain amount of days. Maybe it's the certain area and location that you're in. Maybe it's how you run the ad, whatever it is. At the end of the day, people who are, you know, doing what they're supposed to do and by the rules are going to be able to operate, right? But now you have all these other things that are coming at them. I mean, with the HST implications that selling a Airbnb, strictly Airbnb property, would have on the sale. You know, you could be facing HST like a commercial property. All the tax benefits that they used to have, where if somebody was able to write off their expenses, but now if it's if you're not doing it within the rules, then they're gonna make sure that you can't write off your expenses on your tax returns. The rules that they've been bringing out, certain places it's just like a hard no. We're not doing any Airbnb. Like I just feel like I get it. Like I see why there's certain places like ICE condos in Toronto is like the prime example. Was like people are dying because of parties and different things like that, and it just becomes a real mess that people don't want. There's a lot of condos changing their declaration right now to not allow Airbnbs because they're older buildings and they didn't have that in their rules and bylaws and stuff like that before. But I mean, why is everybody like so against it? It's like, you know who else is getting the target? Airbnb owners and foreigners. They
sure?
got the same target on their back.
Well, it's easy to give them the blame because we're the ones who abused them in the scheme, right? They were the ones who didn't understand enough so that they bought the stuff on the way up, right? And then, people that lived here would go and call back home, right? Or have all kinds of connections back home, or maybe the reason they were here was to bring some of that money over here, right? And they were just buying whatever they thought was like, I don't know, even available. I mean,
But let's
sometimes.
but let's talk about Airbnbs though specifically,
But
right? So
but
it's like
people's strategy had to involve it being an Airbnb for the numbers to make any bloody sense in cities like Vancouver and Toronto, right?
sure.
So all of a sudden, when it didn't make any sense, Airbnb comes on the scene and it's like, oh, well, if I get $400 a night for this thing and I'm only
But it's
empty for
work
four
though. Like
nights,
if for you to put together an Airbnb site and for you to be able to put together that property and for you to be able to manage it and all that kind of stuff, it's work. You know, you're hustling. You should be allowed to do it in order to be able to, make that extra money where you need to. Now, there are some downfalls, but it's just like when people complain against a developer's project. There's like these little tiny people with these big, huge voices who come in and somehow move the needle. And then all of a sudden, we don't have housing anymore. Airbnb, it's the same thing. There's like this like few group of people who are like, and then they're leveraging the housing crisis. They're saying, oh, the reason housing prices are so expensive is look at these numbers. We've had all these long term rentals come off the market. This is what people could be renting. Oh, we've
well,
got all these properties being bought now by investors who are paying
you
more
know
than
what it
the average
really is,
person
though?
because they can afford. Hold on, let me finish. Before they couldn't make sense of those numbers, like you said, but now with the Airbnb income, But it's like this small group of people who are actually voicing this, and what nobody's understanding is like the free market will always prevail. Once you start having the government involved and that they're trying to control everything and trying to micromanage these small economies throughout the whole entire country, with the same type of blanket policies, this really impacts things in a negative way, and it actually takes units out of the market. If you could have Airbnb, then maybe some condo buildings would be getting built right now. If you could do Airbnb in certain places, maybe people would be going out there and wanting to build more, right? Multifamily with some Airbnb suites. Think about it. it create more units, more
Yeah, listen,
options.
from one aspect, it is a necessity to keep the thing going or to keep being able to sell undesirable things, right? The other solution would be to, also let the market correct itself. And really, do people really want that many Airbnbs to choose from? Do people
Yes. When I use Airbnb, I want more Airbnbs to
you
choose
want
from.
more Airbnb?
That's why I use the service. Why would I not?
But so if somebody else could just put an Airbnb like right beside the wall that you share all of a
Yes.
sudden, like, would you
Yes.
be cool with that too?
I'd have the choice to move. This is my choice that I have in this
Choice to move.
country.
So
What if
there
my
you
neighbor
go.
plays the drums? What if my neighbor's got loud dogs? What if
Yeah.
my neighbor, does drugs or is dealing drugs? All these same scenarios happen in every single place. The more money you have, the more exclusive of a neighborhood you could be in, and therefore buy yourself privacy. If I need to live in a place that I can't afford to get that type of privacy, then I got to look at my own situation and say, well, why haven't I been able to afford it?
Right.
Why, like I can only afford a certain level of house, a certain size of house in my current situation. So if
Right.
I got a neighbor that's got a dog barking, I have to say to myself, well, geez, TK, why couldn't you go and afford the 2 acre property, just north of the city for $3 million? Well, because of the choices that I made in my life. You know, I didn't save 90% of my income, whatever the choices is. I had to buy that car, I had to buy that, go on that vacation, all these
Well,
things. So the fact that they're targeting Airbnbs now, though, is just like one more thing after
it's
another.
the
So
worst timing for it.
this announcement is a $50 million short-term rental enforcement fund. The program will provide funding to help municipalities increase enforcement and compliance activities for short-term rentals. So it's the federal government saying, we want to crack down on Airbnbs with no
Right.
real,
Well,
understanding of all the different types of situations that Airbnb renters and Airbnb hosts would have in every single province and every single city. There's just no way that they could possibly understand it. So they're like, okay, we've already changed up the rules. We've already cracked down on as many different ways as we can. Let's start funding the rental enforcement fund because having municipalities enforce this is, necessary for our policies to actually even come into effect. So now this is their new way of showing, hey, vote for us. Hey, we heard from like 6 people that this is what you guys are worried about and that this is going to create lower housing prices. Therefore, we're doing our job. Here's $50 million of your own money. you know, here's what a waste of $50 million. It's like nothing. Let's just give them 50 million. What is that okay? We'll vote on that. Okay, 50 million. How many people do they have to collect, right? $50 million from? Like how many people's taxes was that money?
like, comment, and subscribe if you got anything from one of these clips. And if you want to see some more, press something on the screen here. Boom.
That was good.
That was good. I like that. That was good.